Good afternoon. This is the Virginia Interfaith Power and Light Environmental Justice Now. We're happy to be back with you after a brief hiatus, and today we're excited to have a conversation around the issue of Beyond Methane RVA. I want to welcome you to another Environmental Justice Now live stream. And my name is Faith Harris. I am the Executive Director for Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. And before we start today, I'd like to do a brief land acknowledgement. We want to remind ourselves that as we gather, even though we're on the virtual space, that we are all on the land of Indigenous peoples that came before us. And we're joining today from Richmond, Virginia, and we're on the land of the Powhatan and Chickahominy peoples. And if you are unsure whose land you are on, you can find out by going to the native-land.ca, and you can find out there what land and what peoples actually inhabited this land before colonial period. And so we're happy today to have two guests. And our discussion again is around the issue of Beyond Methane RVA and why is it a problem? Why are natural gas leaks a problem? Today our discussion is with Glen Besa and Lee Williams, both working on the issue of natural gas leaks in the Richmond area. Glen Besa is the retired director of the Virginia chapter of the Sierra Club, and he's currently the Environmental Justice Chair for the Chesterfield NAACP. Lee Williams is, among many things, and among other things, is a founding member of the RVA Interfaith Justice League, and she's active in her creation care ministry at St. Stephen's Episcopal Ministry Church. And so I'm just excited to have both Lee Williams and Glen Besa, who are both affiliated with many social and environmental organizations, but primarily get involved as members of the Sierra Club, Fall of the James group. And they are very active with the Electrify RVA working group of community volunteers created to ensure the timely and equitable implementation of energy policy goals set forth in Richmond City Council's Climate and Ecological Emergency Resolution that was passed on September 2021. So Beyond Methane is a small grassroots group of activists who started working on this issue of natural gas leaks in Richmond more than 2 years ago. And so let's just jump right in and start having our conversation. So what initiated your work in this issue in Richmond? And either one of you can start.
I'll jump in. So we started with the thought of a climate and ecological emergency resolution at the state level. And after two failures in the state General Assembly, we brought it locally to Richmond City Council. We had a brand new council, new membership, almost 4 years ago. And we found a bold and driven champion on city council named Catherine Jordan, who brought the climate and ecological emergency resolution to city council, and it passed unanimously with all 9 city council members standing behind not only the resolution, but the 13 climate initiatives that were embedded in the resolution. Everything from greening the city fleet, to electrifying the buildings, to composting, the whole gamut. And we were able to hire an urban forester out of that resolution. He just began his work July 1st of this year. And so now we'll have the reestablishment of the tree commission, and we'll have a tree inventory that we'll be able to do. And we'll know exactly where our green space is and where it isn't, more importantly, and be able to backfill all of these heat islands and hopefully mitigate some of the effects of extreme heat and pollution in some of our historically red line neighborhoods. There are so many other things in the initiative, but for the purposes of today's program, we're going to be talking about our Beyond Methane working group. But I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that Virginia Interfaith Power and Light was one of 41 other organizations in Richmond who signed on to the original climate emergency resolution. And many of the members of those original supporters are part of our working groups now. We have an urban forestry working group. We have a plastics working group. We have Electrify RVA, and then the subgroup that broke away from Electrify RVA to look specifically at Richmond Gas Works with Beyond Methane RVA. And I think I will kick it over to Glen at this part of the story so that I don't end up monopolizing all the time. It's a wonderful origin story behind Methane RVA.
Yeah, Faith, if you don't mind. So one of the questions might be, why methane? Well, first off, methane is also called natural gas. Natural gas. The climate scientists tell us that, in terms of tackling the climate emergency that we're in, that the easiest way and the fastest way to get a handle on it is to reduce methane, because methane is much more potent than carbon dioxide, which is the most common greenhouse gas. So if we can crank down on our methane leaks through our pipes and through a variety of other sources, then we can actually jump ahead in terms of reducing the impacts of climate change. So getting a handle on methane first is the easiest way to make significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, because methane is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide in terms of its impact on the climate. So we got involved in this and started looking at Richmond Gas Works. And one of the provisions in that resolution that Lee mentioned is a recognition that Richmond Gas Works is inconsistent with the city's goals of reaching net zero emissions. They're going to have to do something about gas works. Can't keep selling gas and expanding gas if they're going to. So we got that in the resolution, and we're looking for a just transition away from gas. And we started by filing a Freedom of Information request with the city and found out that there were over 900 leaks. About the same time, we got a small grant from the Sierra Club to acquire a methane detector, this device right here, which we call the sniffer. And with that sniffer, we can go out and detect natural gas leaks. Now, how do you do that? And this is important for your viewers. If you smell rotten eggs, it's probably not a rotten egg. It's natural gas. There's an additive to the natural gas that gives it that smell for safety reasons, because natural gas is actually otherwise odorless. And so one of our first, in fact, our very first use of this thing was on a route that Lee ordinarily bicycles. She had a really strong smell of rotten gas at a particular intersection. And so our first use of our sniffer was to go out there and sniff it. And we found out that the emissions there were what's called 100% LEL, which is the lower explosive level, meaning there was enough gas there that if someone dropped a match, you could blow that manhole cover off the street, right? And so we didn't quite know what to do. So we called up Richmond Gas Works. They told us we should call 911, which we did. And we've still been going back and forth as to the best way to notify them, because these leaks are not in people's homes. Important to say that if you smell that leak in your home, Richmond Gas Works will be very quick to come out there and address it, because that's a serious problem that could kill people immediately. If that leak is in the street, it's less likely to do so. But if the leak is that large, then it could cause a problem. So we've been at it, and we've been filing a lot of Freedom of Information requests with Richmond Gas Works to kind of figure out what's going on there, not just in terms of the number of leaks, but how they go about fixing the leaks. And then there's a whole number of other issues related to the financial stability of Richmond Gas Works as we transition away from gas, that we can get into later.
Thank you so much for that, Glenn. I really appreciate the overview, and also Lee. And I apologize for the camera during your introductory statements, Lee. Been a while, and I'm just remembering and learning again, re-educating myself on how to navigate through this process. But really appreciate the overview and giving those who are listening today a baseline understanding of why natural gas leaks are a problem and just the scale of the problem for us. So thank you so much. And that's a really powerful, powerful work and important work. And it's really important that people around Richmond who live around gas pipelines and gas infrastructure understand what they're experiencing and what the dangers and the possibilities for change can be. And along that line, one of the questions I have as well is, what is the plan, as far as you know, to transform Richmond Gas Works? Is there a plan, or if you could spell it out for us? And I'll throw that question to Lee first. So Lee?
Thanks. Yes. Sorry. So we have in our volunteer corps some really dedicated folks who some work in the industry and some work outside it. And together we've come up with a pathway to transform Richmond Gas Works. And it's about 8 or 9 ideas. Everything on there from stop subsidizing new connections. Currently, existing ratepayers subsidize the connections of new construction out in the counties. And not only is that not sustainable in the long term as the utility spirals down and fades away, it's going to increase the rates of folks currently on the system, specifically in the city disproportionately, and cause a rate burden on us in the city for the counties. And I just want to note here, in case we don't circle back to it, the current plan for DPU, Department of Public Utilities, is to expand into Goochland County, to increase their footprint into Goochland County. And we want to stop that. We want to stop new infrastructure because 2/3 of all the leaks that we found are in the counties. And it's basic math. There's so many more miles of pipe in the counties. The distances between the connections are so much larger that there's a lot of land movement out there that causes the pipes to leak. And it's just, you will never be able to build a methane gas pipeline system that does not leak. It's impossible. And we know this for a fact because the best practices, the new pipes that are being installed are all out in the counties. And as I said, that's where all of the leaks currently are. The pipes that we have in the city are over 100 years old, some of them, and they are not leaking as well. They're leaking worse. Like, our leaks are larger. We haven't found any 100% LELs in the counties yet, but we really haven't started digging that deep because we've been so busy here in the city. But beyond stopping subsidizing ratepayer subsidy of new construction, we need to stop allocating money for that new business, that expansion into Goochland County. We just need to stop that momentum. We also need to repair instead of replace the pipes that are leaking. We don't have numbers for Richmond City, but we do have numbers for Maryland and Philadelphia specifically. It costs about $2 million per mile to fix a pipe. And it ends up being billions, with a B, billions of dollars back on ratepayers to pay for that. And Richmond, the head of DPU, said at a city council meeting in the spring that they already know it's going to cost about $750 million to fix the leaks that are in the city. And that's just a waste of money. It's stranding assets, as we like to say, when we could be investing in clean, renewable technology and energy. We have a beautiful, I don't know if you all saw, they just signed an agreement to put solar panels up at Dulles. We have acres and acres of open land with beautiful sunlight at our own Richmond Airport. And Richmond City is one of the partners, one of the directors of the airport. We could make that happen. We could use that energy free from the sun. But then the other thing on the pathway to transition Richmond Gas Works, what we're really excited about, because it's actually coming to pass, is the creation of our first public utility commission. And it will look at not only natural gas, but our water rates, our stormwater, and our wastewater rates. And there's been a lot of stops and starts with this PUC, Public Utility Commission. We had hoped it was going to pass in June, but the the wheels of government sometimes go slower than we would like them to, but we hope to pass that ordinance at the first November City Council meeting. We'll keep you all updated of calls to action. It'll be presented at this coming Tuesday meeting. They're not meeting because of Indigenous Persons Day on Monday, so the City Council meeting this month is on the Tuesday, the 10th. But so there's a lot of great reasons why we need a PUC, and we have lots of partners who are working on it with us, experts around lead pipe replacement and evictions with the bill structures the way they are. So we're all very enthusiastic about this coming to pass.
Thank you, Lee. Glenn, I want to turn to you and ask you to kind of clarify a little bit more about why repair rather than replace. And then I think there were a few other pieces to the transforming Richmond Gas Works that you might want to share. So I'm going to turn to you now. And you're on mute.
My apologies. A lot of your viewers may have natural gas in their homes, and it's important to recognize that there's been a lot of science recently with regard to the health effects of relying on natural gas in your home, particularly with young children, people with lung illnesses, elderly people, because of diminished lung capacity, are affected by the nitrogen oxides that are out there when you burn gas in your house. And also, there's benzene, which is a cancer-causing agent that is released as well. So obviously, it's not going to kill you immediately, but if you live in a house for 20, 30 years and you're exposed to gas, it has an effect on you. And obviously, some people are more sensitive than others. So moving off of gas is important. And the good news is that there are significant incentives now to move off of gas with the Inflation Reduction Act. Literally, people can get 30% or more off the cost of a heat pump, for example, instead of a gas furnace. They can put solar on their homes. They can get 30% off of an induction stove, electric stove. So those are the ways to do it. Now, the injustice occurs in this respect, and this is why we really need to have a just transition. Because of the awareness of the problems with gas, both from a standpoint of climate and health, those people with the assets, with the money to do so, will be moving off of gas. They'll be taking advantages of those incentives. Renters, for example, people who may live in their home but maybe of limited income, may not be fully aware of some of these issues or may not have the wherewithal to take advantage of these programs. And as more people move off of gas, and they will, there'll be less customers. At the same time, Richmond Gas Works is spending literally hundreds of millions of dollars more to fix a broken system. Fix a broken system to serve less customers who are using less gas. Now, what does that mean? That means much higher prices. And so there becomes a serious energy burden to those folks who are not able to move away from gas. So we believe the city really needs to be looking at this problem now, because this problem actually has a name. It's called the utility death spiral. Because as you lose customers and you sell less gas and you spend more money on the infrastructure, basically the price keeps so high that more and more people leave, and the few that are left can't afford the cost. And at that point in time, the utility becomes bankrupt. And we have seen some utilities go bankrupt for a variety of reasons across the country. And it's not nice. It's ugly. Because the city, technically speaking, may not be liable for the bonds that were sold to finance this. But as a practical matter, the city is going to step in, or the state's going to have to step in, and all of our customers, all of our taxpayers are going to get stuck with the bill. So you need to have a plan now. You need to develop a plan now to gradually move off of this. And so we talked about retire, not replace. And so there's no reason why we can't start looking at those pipes that are like furthest out or that are in a distinct area, for example, and saying, well, we can electrify this community. Okay, we can electrify this community. And by doing so, we don't have to replace the pipes here. We can basically serve everyone with electricity. And we believe that the Richmond Gas Works can transition itself into a clean energy utility, okay, by helping finance these costs associated with a heat pump, for example, Why they used to do this in a lot of utilities. They had what's called on-bill financing, right? So you replace your gas furnace with a heat pump, okay? And now your bills are much lower because electricity is a lot cheaper than gas, particularly if your house is well insulated. And so you can pay for the insulation and also for the heat pump on your bill as a monthly payment, right? And that bill is comparable to what you would have paid in gas anyway. So this is a way to make a just transition, but we have to have a plan, and we have to tackle some of the legislative issues that might be involved in, for example, on-bill financing. So we just recently started working with the University of Virginia Environmental Law Clinic, and we've got a law student starting to take a look at some of these legal questions to help us make this just transition. Because if we don't, the poorest people in the city are going to get stuck with a bill. And in the end, the city is going to get stuck with a bill because we're not going to be able to finance the way Richmond Gas Works operates now. So that's really what's going on there. And the Public Utility Commission that Lee mentioned is a critical piece there because, for example, when we want to get information from the Richmond Gas Works, we file a Freedom of Information request, and we'll get a bill for $100 or $200 or $300. Well, we just got a bill for over $1,000. Okay, we can't afford that. That ought to be information that's available to the public. And so a Public Utility Commission can ask these questions of the city, and the city shouldn't send a bill. They should give them the answers. We think there's a real need for that. The city council, we believe, is recognizing now that this problem is complicated. They need to address it, and they need help addressing it because the city council has a lot on their plate. And by having a dedicated Public Utility Commission, they can address a variety of these issues. For example, the billing problem, which has got a lot of publicity recently, where there's not enough people, checking the water meters or the gas meters. And as a result, people are getting these crazy bills. 1 month they get no bill, 2 months they get no bill, then they get $1,000 bill or a $3,000 bill. And they're going like, what's going on? So a lot of work needs to be done. And we think a Public Utility Commission made up of citizens and stakeholders could help the council tackle this problem.
I really appreciate the way that both of you have framed the issue for those who are listening. I'm learning a great deal, and I know they are as well. And I especially liked the way that you brought in and tied in the fact that the federal grants are going to be available for people to be able to make this transition from gas and other kinds of fossil fuel energy in their homes, right? And move to electrifying their homes. And just how important it is for our health. We're incredibly, we're in a really precarious time as we're kind of butting up against deadlines and recognizing how important it is for us to move as quickly as possible to renewables, to transition our energy economy away from fossil fuels. And this is really smart plan for how we can do that and also protect and help those who may not be, in a great financial position, but still need to be brought along along with everyone else and not leaving people behind. So I really appreciate the idea of on-bill financing, as well as just having the city consider taking a look at the way in which the funds, the costs are going to go up and eventually will actually, collapse the system. And bringing that as part of the narrative that people begin to think about and talk about is really important as well. So as we're talking about the need to transition, I started thinking about, we've been having, conversations about what Dominion is doing. Dominion Energy is planning for greenhouse gas emissions and doubling its greenhouse gas emissions. Glenn, do you want to start giving us just kind of a little background and say a little bit about that for those who are listening?
Yes, this is really important. I think almost everyone realizes that we've got to do something about climate change. Just 2 weeks ago, 3,000 people died in Libya, and there's literally tens of thousands of people homeless. And last year, there were floods in Pakistan that flooded like half the country and displaced hundreds of thousands of people. So these are problems there. And then, of course, we just saw New York City get flooded a week ago. And And, and it's just a matter of time before a hurricane hits Louisiana or Florida or Hampton Roads. And we literally are, looking at billions of dollars in costs, not to mention the human tragedy that's associated with that. So that's why it's so bizarre to find out that Dominion Energy, even though we have a law that requires them to become net zero by 2045, and net zero means basically no carbon emissions or compensation through credits and offsets. Okay. Instead of achieving the goal or reaching the goal of 100% net zero by 2045, they actually have come out with a plan now that calls for them to double their greenhouse gas emissions. Let that sink in. Double the greenhouse gas emissions. The world is literally on fire. I mean, it's literally on fire. Fires in the US, fires in Siberia, fires in Canada that were affecting our air. I mean, and we have a public utility which has a monopoly, which we have to pay our bills to, proposing to double their greenhouse gas emissions. And I just think that's immoral. We can make a moral judgment on that. That is immoral. And I think you have to make the buck stop with somebody. And the CEO of Dominion Energy is Bob Blue. And we need to basically hold these people accountable. I mean, we have no question or no problem naming politicians when they do something wrong. We know their names, they run for office. But I think we need to hold corporate executives accountable as well. And in this case, Robert Blue is the CEO of Dominion, and he's proposing to double greenhouse gas emissions. And then it goes even, and so how is he going to do that? Well, what I call his down payment on climate chaos. His down payment on climate chaos is a 1,000 megawatt gas plant that they want to build in Chesterfield County right now. And so the Sierra Club, the Southern Environmental Law Center, Chesapeake Climate Action Network, and a range of other groups are starting to gear up to fight this gas plant in Chesterfield County. At the same time, the attorneys for these groups are involved in litigation before the State Corporation Commission to oppose Dominion's outrageous plans to double their greenhouse gas emissions. So this is a fight that everyone can get involved in. They need to work with the Sierra Club or CCAN or, just plug in, not plug in literally, but plug into the work that's going done here to help us stop what's going on. Obviously, Interfaith Power and Light. That's right. A lot of churches have climate programs or environmental justice programs in their churches, and they're usually plugged into the work that the groups I mentioned do. And we need to stop this. We're in a climate emergency. We've got now 7 years to reduce our emissions in rich countries like the United States by 45% by 2030 if we're going to avoid the worst consequences of climate change. Okay. And we've already seen how bad it can be. So this is just outrageous that our public utility, regulated by the state of Virginia, would propose to double its emissions, and then in that sense start, by building a new gas plant in Chesterfield County.
I mean, I think that you hit it on the nail so very well, that this is a moral issue. It's a values issue. It's a matter of, and it actually is a matter of life and death, right? For so many people, and mostly for people who are already vulnerable, who already are, trying to simply survive. And so it is imperative that all of us, first of all, use whatever voice and power, personal power that we have to oppose this plan, but as well to join our organizations. I have up on the screen now Beyond Methane RVA.org. That's one place where, if you're listening and you want to get involved, and you live in the Richmond area, you can log on and find out more. And as well, Virginia IPL, we are constantly, this is our work, right? Our work is to elevate before faith communities of every background. We're not just a Christian organization. We talk to and are interested in having conversations and having Muslims and Buddhists and Greek Orthodox and all traditions participate in this conversation, because it impacts all of us. It impacts the people we love. It impacts our neighbors. It impacts our family and our families. And it's really important for us to do this work together. I want to turn now, we only have a few minutes left, But I want Lee, if there are any actions or issues that you want to share more about activities or opportunities for people to get involved with Beyond Methane RVA, or any of the other issues that we're all working on together.
Thank you. So we currently have a Public Utility Commission letter to just City Council representatives and the mayor and his uppermost administrative staff, so they know how much the community values that. I think right now we're about 165 letters have been sent, but we would love more, but it is only for Richmond City residents. And then Glenn and I have a lovely dinosaur show that we put on Fossil Fuel Fridays. This Friday is First Fridays for the Future, and we're going to be at the Bell Tower every first Friday from now until probably January, doing a program. It'll have a specific theme every Friday. This Friday is Fossil Fuel Fridays, but then next Friday, you'll find us on the corner in front of Dominion headquarters, right there at Canal Street, with our signs trying to stop the compressor station down on the south side. Glenn, can you think of anything else we should invite folks to?
No, I think if you plug into Interfaith Power and Light or the SARE Club or CCAN, we'll keep you posted. There's always new stuff happening. I mean, when we started the Beyond Methane work, we didn't even have a name for it. We didn't even know the extent of the problem. And then as you start peeling the onion, you find more and more layers. And then lo and behold, just this spring, up pops Dominion's energy plan. In May, they followed this plan to more than double their emissions. Before that, they were actually putting together a plan that would have given them net zero. And then come May 1st, boom, we're going to double our emissions. Now, they say, just as a matter of background, that it's the data centers that are popping up everywhere that are creating this demand. But we're saying that these data centers, which we may need to be powered with clean energy, not with more fossil fuel. And so Dominion needs to be held accountable to the law, which requires them to be net zero by 2045. And if you plug into the various groups that Faith has mentioned here and we've mentioned, they're all working on basically the same issue in various aspects of it. So please join an organization that you care about and help us stop the climate insanity.
Yeah, we really do want to encourage, first of all, for you to learn more. And we're going to continue to have these conversations with not just Glen and Lee, but others all throughout the fall and leading up to General Assembly, recognizing that a lot of the reasons that we are in this situation are related to, laws and policies that are initiated and passed through the General Assembly. Even starting this, I loved how Lee put this in context that, not getting anywhere with the General Assembly, not getting through to have the policies that we actually need to transform and to do it in a just way. We need to do it on our local level as well. And so I appreciate the fact that you're doing this work and we're doing it as coalition partners. And so just to wrap up, if today, if there are any other thoughts or anything you want to leave the listeners with to think about besides what actions they can take. Hopefully we'll see many on Friday at the Bell Tower at noon, right? But what other and to send a letter if you're a Richmond resident, you can send the letter, and I'm assuming you can access it at Beyond Methane RVA, right, at that website.
I have a question. When we're seeing a lot of elected officials right now because they're running for office and candidates, okay? And typically when I'm in a room with them, it falls to me to say, well, what about climate change? What are you doing, right? Or that may fall to Lee, or that may fall to Faith, right? We need you, the listeners, to bring this issue up. I mean, in all fairness to elected officials, there's lots of issues that they're dealing with. I mean, they're dealing with inflation. They're dealing with the cost of energy. They're dealing with crime. They're dealing with, women's reproductive rights. All these issues are out there, and somebody needs to speak up for the climate, because the climate is just as urgent, but it's not going to hit you tomorrow. It's going to hit your children or your grandchildren. So when you're out there and a politician knocks on your door and they say, what issues are a concern of you? Tell them climate change. That message needs to be reinforced. Because when they hear it from me, they say, oh, that's just Glenn. Always talks about climate change. They say the same about Lee, and I'm sure they say the same about Faith. But if you say it and you're just one of their constituents, they're going to say, wow, more people concerned about that than just the professional environmentalists, right?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Lee.
And on that note, I would also like to add, we are in the midst of an early election season.
That's right.
Please, if you're not already voted, make a plan to vote. I think Saturday voting starts in 2 weeks, a week and a half, but Monday through Friday, it's wide open. Go at lunchtime.
Yeah. Both of you hit on what would have been my final words. One, we're preparing for General Assembly now. We want you to gear up and get ready. We'll have workshops to teach you how to lobby, how to talk to your legislator, but we really want you to participate. As Glenn did point out, they see us all the time. They hear from us all the time. They're really interested and want to hear from their constituents. They want and they need to hear the things, the issues and the concerns that you feel are most important. Climate and environmental justice are on the top of that list, as well as, just as important as any of the other. And in fact, often I say that environmental justice and climate justice are so important that they really should be prioritized, because all the other social justice, all the other social issues really don't matter if you can't live, right? If you can't breathe clean air, if you can't drink clean water, if your house and your community around you is on fire or underwater. So, I am certainly a champion for racial and justice issues, women's justice issues, all of the other issues that are critically important and part of the ongoing political narrative. But I also know that without environmental and climate justice, we're all going to be kind of floating down the river or burning up in a forest. So I really encourage you to participate in the election and the electoral process. That is a perfect way for us to have our voices amplified, to exercise our responsibility and our privilege as citizens. So don't sit this one out because it's not presidential. It's just as important as the presidential election. And we are reminding you about that almost every day, every week at least, through our e-news. So I'm really excited that we had this first conversation with you, Glenn and Lee. And by the next time, we'll be in better practice. So I won't be, messing around with the cameras. And we'll have more opportunities to revisit this conversation, especially around the Dominion's plan to double greenhouse gas emissions. So thank you so much for your time today, and look forward to future conversations. And I hope to see you Friday at the Bell Tower. So we're going to sign off now, and thank you again. Bye-bye.